The YouTube video you're about to watch is an account of the wonderful sound design journey that befell a Cornish composer and sound designer. If he lives a very, very long life, he could not have expected to have had so much fun designing sounds of the mad and macabre. The events of the last 4 years were to lead to the development of one of the most terrifying games in the annals of video game history, the Texas Chain Saw Massacre.
Hello, I'm Ross Dragenza. I'm a composer and sound designer for video games. I've worked on titles such as Helldivers 2, Deathloop, Cyberpunk 2077, Wolfenstein, Gears of War, Crisis, Time Splitters, Team Sonic Racing, and many, many others. I've been doing this for a long time. And 4 years ago, I was given the opportunity to compose and sound design for the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. If you'd asked me at any point in my life what a dream project would be, that would be very high on the list, and it has been a dream. It's been 4 wonderful years. I've been so happy working on the project, and I've been given a huge amount of creative and directorial freedom to do what I want. And my work as sound designer on the project is now complete. So I thought it's a nice time to reflect on my top 20 favorite crazy, interesting, or just sort of anecdotal moments of sound design that have happened in the last few years. Here we go.
Insects.
So, you got a game set in Texas, and a lot of it is outdoors, and there's a lot of creepy crawlies. Our maps in Texas Chain Saw Massacre aren't insanely massive. They're not like big sort of procedurally generated giant. It's not like Skyrim or something like that, where it's just a insane world. They're like boutique and curated, and they're designed for purpose. And obviously they're based primarily on the film locations, so they're very well known and replicated spaces. So to that end, I knew I needed to put a lot of insects in it, but did I need to build like some kind of systemic system for generating where insects are placed in the game? I thought, well, no, not really. What I could probably do is just go through the entire map and look at any place where insects probably would be and just put them there. So I designed the sounds of like cicadas and crickets and general creepy crawlies and stuff like that. And then I just went around every map looking at every possible spot where an insect probably would be, like slightly moist log piles, on tables with decaying, rotting food, in the undergrowth around forests and things like that. And I hand-placed thousands of insects across all the different maps. And I love it. You have to be very close to the insects to hear them. But if you're hiding like near a log pile or something like that in the game, you'll hear individual cicadas and crickets and things like that. And I don't know, that made me very happy. I don't know why, I'm a weird dude.
The gas station.
So the gas station, I want to say last year. What is time? Maybe it's the year before. Maybe it's last year. Anyway, when the game launched, we went over to Texas, like a few of the guys from Sumo Nottingham, as like a representative team for like a launch event to talk to, press and social media people and stuff like that, which was super cool. It was an amazing event. Like Gunn did an amazing job with it. It was awesome. And we were there for a few days. So I took field recording equipment with me to make sure that while I was there, I could record some cool text and ambient sound, because the elements of the game were still in progress. I had the opportunity to like inject those into the game. So if I can take actual recordings from Texas, then why not? Oh, that was good. And on one of the days, we went to the gas station that you see quite early in the film, where the cook comes out and the guys are in their cool green van, and they speak to him and stuff. The green van is still there, and it's now kind of it's sort of a homage to the film. The location is, and they sell like horror stuff inside and things like that. And you can go around the back, and you can actually go around the premises. They were super cool there, very friendly, very nice to us when we told them we were the development team for the game and stuff. So I took my field recording kit out to the back of the premises, right into like the long grass, like at the extremity of the premises. And I thought I could actually use this in the real gas station level that we're making, since this is the gas station. I mean, how cool is that? So I set my field recording gear up in the grass, and I kind of stood there for about a minute just listening to the ambient sounds, thinking, oh man, this is going to sound so damn cool in game. Then I realized I was in Texas, standing in about 1.5 feet of grass by a tree that was absolutely covered in cobwebs. I'm terrified of snakes and spiders, and I then immediately had a panic attack and ran to an outhouse, which they had at the back of the premises, to make sure I wasn't covered in giant, terrifying Texan spiders. The outhouse, though, was also covered in cobwebs, and so I had like an exacerbated panic attack in the outhouse. Fortunately, I didn't get killed by snakes or spiders or anything. And it was worth it because I used those recordings in the game in the end. Yikes.
Wood floorboards.
This was kind of like a horror film trope that I wanted to draw on. It turned out to be really difficult. I don't know why, but every aspect of getting creaky wooden floorboards into the game was a pain in my ass. Like, it took years to get it right. It's pretty cool now. So there's a system that are built so that if you move very, very slowly, like basically like the slower you move over the wooden floorboards in the game, the more intense creaking happens of the wood. It's quiet because there's always gameplay implications to aspects of this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, I don't want it to become a design concern because you've got the audio team and the design team, and I don't want it to become a gameplay aspect that they need to like account for. So it's quiet, but if you move around, there's like tiny little creaks of the floorboards, just because, I mean, everyone loves that in horror films as you're trying to move as quietly as possible. It goes really nicely with the breath system, that if you're pretty much static, then you start doing this kind of slightly panicked, pained breath of, so you got the of the floorboards and then the pained breath. Hopefully, what I was aiming for was that people get like a real cinematic moment here and there where, you know, they're like trying to move behind a sofa with Leatherface on the other side of it, and you get a real film moment. So hopefully that happened for some of you.
Steam.
So I think I've touched on the rule of cool previously. Just to reiterate, when you talk about the rule of cool in the video games industry, this is probably not just in the video games industry, it's probably a universal thing, but it's in my experience, this is where we talk about it. It means it doesn't matter if it makes sense, it's just freaking cool. So in the case of sound design, that can be, even if it's like a tiny gun, give it a massive sound and it's satisfying. Doesn't matter if someone lands on the ground and it goes and there's no reason for that to happen. Doesn't matter. It's the rule of cool. It's just fun sound design. So in that spirit of the idea of fun sound design, there's quite a few places in the game where I've done ridiculous steam machines that they're just like this big looping designed assets of crazy machines that don't really reflect anything in real life other than being terrifying and steamy and machiney. Steamy and machiney, I love that. Some places you can hear them are Nancy's house. There's like a room with a load of like machines and like metal grates on the floor. Or in Slaughterhouse, there's a room with a load of machines on one side. And you'll hear, if you stay there long enough, there's a long, looping, rhythmic designed And I really went crazy on that stuff. Like in that sound design, I think there's like lions and tigers, owls, screaming, and actual steam, like metal stress. A shout out to an amazing sound library. The what's it called? Tremor sound library. Oh, I can't remember who makes it. I'll try and overlay it or something. But I used a lot of that as well. But yeah, so it's a mixture of like a metal distress and vibrations with owls and screaming tigers and pigs and things. Like it doesn't make any sense why that would be happening, but it's a fun bit of sound design.
Nelly.
I have 2 ragdoll cats, and as much as I love them, I don't think I ever realised that one of them would one day feature in a classic horror film video game. But my older cat, Nelly, he's very vocal, and one day he was just very angry because his dinner was a bit late because I was working on the video game, and he was just making a particularly good sound. So I recorded it, and that's one of the many layers you can hear in the out-of-tune TV sets in the game. So listen out for my cat. I think I also have some backwards pitch down purring from him as well on the TV sets. So listen out for that. Were you in the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, my boy? Yeah, you were. You weren't.
Owl.
This is going to be just a quick and easy one. There's a particular type of owl that lives in Texas that I did a bit of research and found out about. And it just sounds like a terrifying, deathly scream. There's one single place in all of the Texas Chain Saw Massacre game that you can hear him doing this little scream. And I'm not going to tell you where it is, but he sounds like this. If you think you know where that is, post in the comments, and if you've got it right, I'll let you know.
My mom's fridge.
So this one was just like a little bit of guerrilla sound design, I guess I'd call it. I'm a huge mama's boy. I'm completely fine with that. My mum's lovely. She lives in the south of the UK. I live in the Midlands at the moment. I went to visit her one time, and her fridge was making an insane sound when I opened it. I guess it was like overrunning, or like I don't know about mechanics of fridges, but it was going like sounded so cool. So I just stuck my iPhone into the fridge and recorded it, and I ended up using that sound as one of the many, many layers of content for the TVs in the game. If you go around any of the maps, you'll see like out of tune TVs with like TV static happening. The content in terms of audio that you hear for those is very complex. Like I got really into it. There's about like 15 different layers of stuff that phases in and out over time. And one of those was my mum's fridge, just making a weird sound. Yeah, it was cool.
Private wind.
In terms of sound libraries that you can buy, something that's really underrepresented is creaking wood and wind through rafters and things like that. Just the sound of old dry buildings just moving naturally under the pressure of wind and rain and things like that. I've really exhausted all the content that I had, but fortunately I live where I am right now. I'm in Nottingham in the UK. This is a very old building that was once a lace factory. And I'm on the top floor. Everything is all like wood beams and stuff like that. It's very cool and very creaky and very old, very, very old. So if the wind rises up, it really gets really quite creaky and crazy up here. So we had a real crazy, like windy, stormy, I think one of those, named storms coming in, Hurricane Fred or whatever it was called at the time. Came in, and it was insane up here. So I took my field recording equipment. I went to every floor of this building. I went outside. I went into the garage. basically spent an entire weekend just recording interesting wind and creaks and moans and stuff like that. I mean, the gold star of like wind sound design stuff is like choral moans, where you get that where it's like a humanistic element to it. Is humanistic a word? I don't know. And I got some of those anyway, as well as loads of other cool like clonking wood and creaking. But so I use my own private wood, wind, and scary, whooshy sound recordings, primarily in the abandoned mill level of the game, because this is kind of later in the project. So if you're playing that, then a lot of those recordings are things that I did in this building I'm in right now. Seafood. I don't like seafood, really. I don't eat lobster or prawns or anything like that, just because I'm a wuss, and to me they all look like sea monsters and space aliens, and I just can't fathom the idea of eating them. Fathom feels like this joke there somewhere. But I did use an awful lot of seafood recordings in the Texas Chain Saw Massacre in the executions. So I tried a lot of different sounds for the executions in the game. My initial idea was to keep them really understated and raw. My influences were films like Taxi Driver and Scum and stuff like that, like 70s cinema, where the violence in it was just like harrowing and realistic in a way that was just really upsetting. And I've talked about this in another video that I've done about doing gore sound design in video games, but basically like the more over the top the violent sound design is, like, stabbing and stuff like that, the more it detaches from reality, and it's aesthetically, orally pleasing, but it kind of gives you a safety net, like a comfort blanket, and moving you away from the reality of the violence of what's happening. And Texas Chainsaw was quite a harrowing film, so I wanted to try and retain some of that. So I have done that. Like, all the stabby sounds and things like that are quite sort of short and dry in the game, but they were sounding very, very, literally very dry. They needed wetness in it. So I found I had a library of recordings of like dead seafood, like crabs and shrimps and lobsters and things, just getting crunched and squished around. And that really became the go-to for all of the executions in the game. So anytime there's like stabs or punches or anything really, I used a load of because you get like the crack of a shell breaking and then the wetness underneath. So it's like dry crack, wetness underneath. It's really gross, and apologies for being such a little gross weirdo, but I think it works. If you listen back to any of those executions now, you'll notice the gross seafood element.
Knockers.
All right, this one's a pretty crazy one. It was something that I wanted to put into the game, and I ran by Wes Keltner, the CEO and executive audio director of the project, to make sure he was happy with, because I was kind of injecting a bit of folklore that's part of my history into it, but I think it's pretty cool. So, knockers. I mean, that word means different things to different people. I'm from Cornwall. Cornwall is a region in the southwest of the United Kingdom. While we are technically English, we're Celts, and we have our own language and our own culture that is very distinct from the English. Like my last name, Tregenza, is a Cornish language name. I'm very proud to be a Cornishman. It's it's part of my heritage, my entire family is Cornish. It's a big part of who I am, and There's a very interesting bit of Cornish folklore that in the tin mines that are all over Cornwall. My dad was a tin miner, and so it's very relevant. But there's like knocking sounds in the tin mines that people could hear, like dong 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 dong. The legend was that these were little creatures called knockers, and that if you didn't give them a bit of your pasty, and I'm going to have to stop there and explain a pasty. A pasty is a Cornish handheld food item that's pastry and stuff inside, and it's very delicious. Just Google it. I can't go this far into sub details, but anyway, the legend was you have to like take a little piece of your pasty and throw it down the mine for the knockers, these little creatures, sort of mischievous, gremlin-y creatures. If you didn't do that, you would have an accident in the mine. So all the miners would do that. But that sound of the dum 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 on the walls, even as a little child, I found that really evocative and scary and interesting as an idea. So I've put knockers into the game. A couple locations you can hear them are just before the ladder that leads up to the side garden of the family house. There'll be knockers above you there. And then in the roof cavity of Nancy's house, I put some there. I think I put some other ones around, but those are ones that I definitely know that I put. So, knockers.
Kez.
Another lovely animal involved in the game was my friend Joe's dog, Kez. She's a beautiful old lady. I think she's like 10 or 11 years old now. She's a big dog. She's very big. She's very affectionate with me. Every time I go and visit them, she's a little possibly over affectionate with me, and I have to sort of move her off a little bit. But she's a beautiful dog, and she has a great sort of deep, resonant dog voice. So I got Joe to record her, and I took that recording and I pitched her down 2 octaves, and you can hear that in the abandoned mill level. There's like a metal grate over a tunnel. You can hear it there. You can also hear it in the gas station level, and also in the reveal trailer for the Nicotero chainsaw, when I think it's Leland is walking towards the camera, and then you eventually see the Nicotero Leatherface. I used it for that as well. So that is a lovely, big, friendly dog. So the chainsaw. Whew. I think if there's been one sound design challenge in my life that's been the most difficult, it's been the chainsaw from the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. It consumed my life for a very long time getting that thing right. The problem is, it's not a case of replicating any one thing. There's 3 factors there. It's a triangle. At the top of the triangle, you've got how that chainsaw sounded, which is a Poland 306A or 245, just that chainsaw from the 70s. And then you've got over here how the chainsaw sounded in the film. The film was recorded in the early 70s. The microphone technology and stuff like that was of its time, so it had its limitations, caused distortion, phasing issues and stuff like that. And then so you got the real chainsaw, you've got how it sounded in the film, and then you've got the rule of cool and video games. How things sound in video games isn't an accurate representation of how they sound in real life. I've made a lot of video games, I've done a lot of sound design, like weapons, for example, like sniper rifles and shotguns. If you hear how they sound in video games, and there's an expectation of them to sound chunky and beautifully multi-frequency and thumpy. I mean, in real life, they sound freaking awful. They just don't sound very nice at all. So the experience of lovely video game sound design is over here. Over here, you've got how it sounded in the film in the 70s. Up here, you've got the actual chainsaw. So finding the balance in that triangle was an absolute beast. But I redesigned it again and again and again, countless times throughout the project. I was never happy with it. I kept sending Wes versions of it, and like the explanation that I would send at the time was just getting longer and longer. Of like, I've increased the phasing here, and the loop here is now more in tune with this one. And the longer those explanations were that I was giving him, I think in the back of my mind I knew I was just trying to deal with the fact that it didn't sound right. So the final one, when I finally got it right, there was no paragraph of information I sent off to him. I just said, listen to this. And he said, expletive, yeah, that's the one. And yeah, we both knew immediately, finally got it right. And thank God for that, because it's the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. You can't have a shit sounding chainsaw in the Texas Chain Saw Massacre.
False positives.
So false positives, this is an interesting one for sure. We're going to get a bit sound designy and filmy here again. This isn't a new idea. This has always been around. So when I say false positive, what I mean is in reference to horror films and horror games and stuff. Like, imagine like a moment where early in a film, someone might open a cupboard and something falls out and you think it's going to be like the bad guys hacking them, and it's not. That would be a false positive. So we're basically doing that in terms of sound design. For Texas Chainsaw, this was really inspired by Alien Isolation, which was a fantastic video game. And they did an amazing job that I was very aware of when I was playing the game, of the sound design and the visuals earlier in the game, before you even encounter one of the aliens. Like making you feel like they're present when they're not. Like it'll be shapes move, like there'll be a light projecting behind a fan, and it'll be moving in a way that looked like an alien, or something be tapping on some metal. It sounded like the alien moving, and I really wanted to do that. That was one of the things that day one of the project I knew that I wanted to happen for Texas Chainsaw. I wanted things to sound like the chainsaw and like Leatherface and stuff like that in the environment all the time. And that's what I've done. I've hand placed around all of the environments, creaking wood and metal that goes like dung, 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 dung. It sounds like the chainsaw, or like metal moans that sound like Leatherface and stuff like that. It's just really nice to keep people on their toes. I've also got a parameter in the game that we're checking in terms of like the audio code for how long it's been since you've been in like a fight with the enemy. So if you're one of the victims in the game and it's been quite a long time since you've actually engaged with the enemy, then I start raising up all these extra sounds. So it's kind of like it probably would be in that situation. Your mind starts playing tricks on you. So as time goes on, if you haven't engaged with the enemy, you start hearing more and more creepy sounds in the game. So listen out for that. I'm kind of proud of that system. It's good fun.
Nicotero.
The Nicotero saw. So I think what I like about this was like, I worked with CEO and executive audio and art director Wes Keltner on the project, like all the way through from day one. And this was very sort of indicative of our relationship, where I would send him a thing. I knew it wasn't quite right, and I wanted it to be in my own head, but I would send it like, "Hey, here's a finished thing," and he would tell me it wasn't right, and I have to do it again. And that repeated again and again and again, and I'm very appreciative of that. Like, I'm a huge fan of people giving me direction that stops me getting lazy and ending things at the 80% mark, which is, I've got a terrible habit of thinking, okay, I'm pretty sure that's fine. And it's not. You to do really good work, you need to push past the comfort zone and just keep going and going and going again and again. And Nicotero saw was very much one of those. I think, for context, what the Nicotero saw is, as one of the downloadable items in the game, we have, as well as the original Poland chainsaw, we have an additional saw and a mask that comes from designs from Greg Nicotero, which was just freaking awesome. So, and it was a beast of a saw. It's based on I think it's like a 1950s chainsaw. I think it's called a Bradley 360. I mean, I couldn't believe it was a real chainsaw. It looked so like satanic and awesome. I loved it. But I did like a first go on it, and Wes was like, nope. And then second, third, fourth, fifth, nope. And we just kept going, and I wasn't getting it. And he just kept saying, bassier, heavier, more evil. And I really, really tried. But we kept going, and eventually, I think it was version 14. And I mean, that says, as in, I scrapped everything and started again 14 times. And we're talking about a chainsaw system that's like 20 different loops of content and stuff like that. But yeah, I wasn't happy with any of the previous ones either, really. So it was worth doing. But yeah, number 14 was a bassy, satanic, deadly chainsaw. And yeah, as always with people giving me advice on content that I'm designing, I'm so happy they didn't let me get away with anything less than, the best it could be. So yeah, we got there.
Radio evangelist.
I was kind of proud of it, and it's not really come up very much in discussions and things, but there are radios dotted around every map in the Texas Chain Saw. When you approach them, there are two possible stations that will happen. One of them is the news station, where they'll recite a lot of the little like news nuggets that you also hear when the game's loading in. And they'll just run constantly through those. But the other option is like a creepy pitch down radio evangelist, which is me. It was like a weekend project. I just thought I'd try it out and see how it sounded, and I really liked it. So what I did was I just basically Googled all references to cannibalism in the Bible, and then I recorded myself reciting them in that evangelical style, that very dramatic way. It sounded fine, but didn't sound as creepy as I wanted. So I ended up just pitching it down about like half an octave and slowing it down half an octave. So in the I'm like, and yeah, I like it. It's creepy.
I will make them eat the flesh of their sons and daughters, and they will eat one another's flesh.
It's very background in the game, but if you have a moment when nothing's going on and you're next to it, it's very, very unsettling. So that was what I was going for.
Death breath.
This is more of like a sound design. I think other sound designers for games and films probably do the same thing, but wind and breath are kind of interchangeable. If you've got like a bit of echoey, reverberant wind going through a tunnel, like that kind of thing, it's almost interchangeable with someone doing a breath of in a tunnel. So they layer really nicely. So I used like a blend of actual wind recordings and me, basically a lot of times of me just going to a microphone going, and then mixing the two to get the creepiest wind in the world. If you're a sound designer for games or films or anything, you probably already know about that, but it's a really good technique for basically any time you've got the opportunity to inject something organic and sort of anthropomorphized, I think is the word, into something that's a bit more normally quite static and non-animalistic, then it gives it a huge extra boost in creepiness or just vibrancy and stuff. So yeah, pretty much any time you hear wind in the Texas Chainsaw game, it's going to be me or just some of my previous recordings or library recordings of creepy breath are layered in underneath there just for that extra 5% creepiness. What was that?
Creepy kids, creepy pigs.
I've been making the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and do the sound design for years and years, and it put me in a very sort of luxurious position of being able to just layer over time. And I wake up every day, play the game, wander around the spaces that I've been designing the ambient sound for, see how they feel, see if they're being more like detail, if they sound cool enough, if they're scary enough. And that's lovely. It just means that I can spend time iterating endlessly, basically, which is what I did. It became like a real passion project. I would work on weekends and evenings, and no one asked me to, I would just add more and more detail all the time. And at some point I decided I wanted like a universal extra layer of terrifyingness just because I'm a dickhead and I wanted to ruin you guys' lives with creepy sounds. So the idea was I would add an extra layer of sounds that trigger on a very irregular cadence. They wouldn't happen very much at all. You would have to be standing in one spot for quite a long time, and the chance of hearing the sounds are really low. But when they do, they're going to scare the shit out of you. That's exactly what the idea of what I was doing. So what I did was I built a little collection of sounds that I took source material from like babies and children and pigs, and I sort of added some like reverb and distortion and things like that to them. And then I've set them up in various locations in the game so that if you're standing there for X amount of seconds, there's a random chance that they may happen. And just because it'll ruin your day, because it's so terrifying. So a couple of locations are in the family house, in the tunnel that leads to the side garden ladder that goes up. There's one there. In the cattle runs of slaughterhouse, in the thicket at the top of the ladder, in the gas station, places like that. I tried to put them in places where you feel most uncomfortable because they're like really deep into tunnel systems or just physically uncomfortable spaces. I wanted you to already be claustrophobic, and then these terrifying sounds can happen. So if you want to hear them, you just need to hang out in one of those spaces. Eventually it will happen, and you're welcome. There's a chicken in the game that we call Nugget. For some of these recordings, I had like library content that was perfectly good already, like that. No, it's the other way around. So the agitated chickens, we had library content for them, crazy chicken stuff. But what I needed and didn't have was a lot of chilled out chicken sounds. So if you're a sound designer out there and you're looking for a new library to make, then the chilled out sounds of chickens, I think, is definitely something that's missing out there at the moment. So yeah, I had agitated chicken sounds for when you get close to the chicken and he goes all flappy and crazy, but I didn't have anything for when he's just chilling out normally. Fortunately, my good friend Graham Norgate owns a chicken. Graham Norgate is a very, very good friend. He's like a brother to me, and he's a legendary video game composer. He composed the music for GoldenEye and Time Splitters, Killer Instinct, Jet Force Gemini, like loads of amazing games. And so it's his chicken that you're hearing in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So that is a luxury chicken.
Grackle.
My nemesis. I think I mentioned previously, me and a few of my colleagues from Sumo Nottingham went to Texas for the like a launch event that Gun did that was just absolutely amazing. They built like a replica of the family house from the film in like a hangar, I guess it was. It was just phenomenal. But when we arrived in Texas, one of the first things I heard was a bird that I've never heard before, which is just interesting to me. I think my ears were open from the second I arrived in Texas, thinking about like, okay, so I've never been to Texas before. I'm making a video game set in Texas. I need to listen for anything that's definitely Texan. And I was introduced right away to the great-tailed grackle, which is a beautifully named, quirky bird that I fell in love with immediately. I love birds generally. I just love bird song and stuff. So I was so excited to hear this new bird and to see these beautiful little creatures flying around. They had so much personality. I made it my mission to record one with my field recording equipment, much to the amusement of my other friends from Sumo Nottingham that came with me. I kept running after one, and as soon as I went to try and record him, he'd fly off to another place, and I'd run over there, try and record him over there, and then he'd... and so on. But eventually I did get a recording of him. And if you play the abandoned mill level of Texas Chain Saw Massacre, you'll hear that little bird that I recorded myself after quite a long bit of cat and mouse of me trying to actually get him to do some bird sounds. But I got his recording eventually. I'm so happy that that bird is in the game. And finally, number one. I mean, it's a crazy world, isn't it? Who knows what things will happen, but if when I was watching the Texas Chain Saw Massacre as a teenager, you tell me that one day I would play the voice of Grandpa. What the fuck? Sorry, excuse my language, but what the fuck? It was so amazing. It wasn't ever really like a planned thing that I would be the voice of Grandpa in the game, but I just did it because ease of sound design and setting it up, and I guess it just sounded right, and so we never like recast it or anything. So every sound that Grandpa makes is me. So all of his little... like, literally, I didn't even put any effects on that. That was just me being an old man. And then his... yep, that's all just me. There's a little bit of, like, delay and, like, tape effect on it and stuff like that, but not a lot. Basically, everything that Grandpa does is just me being an old dude. But I'm insanely proud to be part of the history of the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, like playing one of the characters in the game. Wow, I mean, Jesus Christ, that's just absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's me going... a lot in the game, and that is literally my favorite sound of all the sounds. Thank you so much for listening to all of this. I hope it was fun and interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, last little thing, a few little shout outs. I think I sometimes talk about the audio from Texas Chain Saw like I did it all on my own, and I don't mean to do that. While I was the primary sound designer and I was the composer and everything, there's like a group of people around me that allowed me to do that work and focus on it, that if they weren't there, I would have spent my whole time fixing bugs and trying to figure out why things are broken and stuff like that. So I want to give a few people a shout out. In terms of the audio code, the game started with Joe White back at the beginning of it, and he did some good foundational work. We had Taz from Tasman Audio in the interim, who set up some cool stuff. After that, and this is a real superstar of the project and deserves a lot of attention, is Eugene Cherney, who's a phenomenal audio coder. He set up all the spatial systems. The reason you know where somebody is in the map and how close they are to you and stuff like that is all Eugene's work. He's phenomenally talented, and this game wouldn't have sounded good without him. And I would have spent all my time just trying to figure out why things were broken and stuff like that, on top of the foundational work he did. So Eugene Cherney, legend. We also had Marshall Cavers, who's a sound designer on the project, who spent a lot of time fixing like spatial bugs and things like that. Also did some of the sound design for like the interactions and things. And at the later end of the project, Dexter Pryor came on, who's another sound designer, and again shown a load of diligence and made sure that everything sounded at the top quality that it should be. And then I guess I should mention just my bosses at Sumo, which were Tom Turner and Gary Edwards, who just had a huge amount of faith in me and let me just get on with it. Like, it makes a lot of difference. And in respect to that, there's Wes Keltner, who's the audio and art executive director at, well, he's basically the CEO and the boss of Gun, the publisher. And from the beginning, he just had a huge amount of faith in me and just let me get on with it. Like, for huge amounts of time, I would just do sound design and stuff like that. He just let me do it. So he's a legend. All these people are brilliant. And because of all this brilliant, cloud of people around me, just making sure that things are all right, I was allowed to just do the good work. So my sound design for Texas Chain Saw Massacre is now over. It's been the most fun, wonderful project of my life, and I'll miss it, and I love it, and thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. You made the whole thing so awesome.